Hey there. Welcome to Pulse of the People, where real voices get heard. We dive deep, speak boldly, and break down social and political issues from the people's point of view, raw, honest, and unfiltered.
Glad to be here.
The American people by the millions are saying no to oligarchy, no to Trump's authoritarianism, no to Trump's kleptocracy, and no to tax breaks for billionaires.
Ever stop to wonder why, in a nation as wealthy as ours, so many folks are still just one missed paycheck away from serious trouble?
That's really the heart of what we're digging into today, isn't it? We've got this significant speech by Senator Bernie Sanders.
Right, from Philadelphia.
Yeah, a May Day event co-sponsored by the AFL-CIO. We're going to unpack what he had to say about the economic realities a lot of Americans are facing.
Okay, May Day. I mean, we hear the term, but Sanders actually called it a sacred holiday. What's the significance there? Why that specific phrasing?
Well, it's interesting. He's really drawing a line, connecting that Philly event to this, long global history.
Of workers' rights.
Exactly. Workers demanding justice, a decent life. It's like he's saying this isn't just another protest. It's part of a historical struggle.
Against powerful interests, he mentioned.
Right. And he acknowledges the sacrifices made, the ongoing fight, pointing to groups like the AFL-CIO still carrying that torch today. So sacred adds that historical weight, that deeper meaning.
Gotcha. Now, the speech mentions a massive crowd there in Philly. And there was this sort of suggestion that maybe Trump and MAGA are terrified by the crowds Sanders and someone like AOC are drawing.
Yeah, the crowd size point.
What's the thinking there? Why does a big crowd matter in this context?
Well, think about it visually. A huge turnout. It's a powerful signal. Right.
Signal of what, though? Just popularity?
More than that, potentially. It suggests his message about, the economy, workers' rights is really hitting home for a lot of people.
So it could indicate maybe a shift in what people are thinking or feeling.
Precisely. It's the kind of thing political watchers definitely notice. It suggests resonance, momentum, maybe.
Okay, this is where, for me, it got really pointed.
Yeah.
Sanders talks about oligarchy, a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, and for the billionaire class. And he puts that right up against Lincoln's famous words.
Of the people, by the people, for the people.
That's a really stark contrast he's drawing.
It absolutely is. And what's key here is he doesn't just leave it as a big statement. He gives examples.
Like what?
He points to Trump's inauguration, mentions seeing figures like Musk, Bezos, Zuckerberg right there.
Blanking him, I think, was the term.
Yeah, and then he talks about appointing, 13 other billionaires to run major government agencies.
Wow, 13.
So his argument is, look, this isn't random. It shows how wealth, extreme wealth, gets you direct access and influence over policy.
And he's pretty critical of these individuals, calls them greedy oligarchs.
He does.
And claims they're willing to basically destroy programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid.
Nutrition programs, too, he mentioned.
Right, all for more tax breaks. That's a heavy accusation about their motives.
It is strong language. It really highlights the central conflict in his view.
That their priorities are just fundamentally different from most people's.
Exactly. He's saying, the system as it is now serves this tiny group at the top, and he's arguing the country should belong to everyone, not just the billionaires.
So to back this up, what kind of economic picture does he paint? He throws out some pretty eye-opening statistics.
Yeah, the stats really ground the argument. He starts with 60% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. 60%.
That alone is staggering.
It is. Then he gets into wealth concentration. Elon Musk having more wealth than the bottom 52% of households.
52%. That's hard to even visualize.
It really is. And the top 1% owning more than the bottom 93%.
53, okay.
And maybe the most sobering one. Working class people living, on average, 7 years less than the wealthy.
7 years shorter lives. That really puts a human cost on it, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It connects the economic numbers directly to, life and death.
And it wasn't just about the concentration, right? He also mentioned something about wages compared to the past.
Right. This one's fascinating. He says the average worker, adjusted for inflation, earns less per week now than 52 years ago.
Less? Even with all the technology and productivity gains. How does that work?
Well, that's his point, isn't it? The gains haven't been shared. Productivity goes up, technology advances, but wages stagnate or fall for many.
Which explains some of the anxiety people feel, maybe.
It could, yeah. And he contrasts all this with, 800,000 people sleeping on the streets amidst all this incredible wealth.
He also mentioned his own background, growing up in a family living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
How does that personal angle play into it?
I think it adds a layer of authenticity. It suggests he's not just talking about abstract theories.
It's lived experience for him.
Seems like it. It likely fuels his passion on the issue, gives him that perspective on what those statistics actually mean for families day to day.
So, hearing all this critique, this picture of inequality, what's the way forward, according to Sanders? What's his call to action?
Well, he urges his Democratic colleagues specifically to stop, quote, defending the status quo economically. He wants a shift.
A shift toward what?
Towards ensuring everyone has a decent standard of living. He insists that's not some, radical idea.
So concrete policies.
Yeah, he mentions several. Ending the current campaign finance system, one person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections, I think he said.
Right. Campaign finance reform.
Making billionaires and corporations pay their fair share in taxes. That's a big one for him, tackling that inequality head on.
No more tax breaks for the rich, basically.
That's the message. Plus, growing the trade union movement, passing the PRO Act to make it easier for workers to organize.
Empowering workers.
Exactly. Raising the minimum wage to a living wage, arguing no one working full-time should be in poverty.
Makes sense.
And investing in people, tuition-free public colleges, better pay for teachers, aiming for the best public education and childcare. It's a pretty comprehensive vision.
He shared a story, too, didn't he? From an interview somewhere.
Yeah, Altoona, Wisconsin. That was powerful.
What was the gist of it?
He described people talking about the daily grind of living paycheck to paycheck, the impossible choices.
Like choosing between.
Shoes for the kids, or eyeglasses, or seeing a doctor, or even food. Just basic necessities becoming these agonizing decisions.
Wow. That really brings those statistics to life.
It does. It connects the dots between the 60% statistic and the stress, the anxiety, even connecting back to that lower life expectancy figure we mentioned earlier.
The human cost again.
Right. He argues these kinds of struggles affecting such a huge portion of the population aren't talked about enough, but they're critical.
So the ultimate goal is transforming the economy.
Yeah, so it works for everyone, not just, as he says, the billionaires.
And right at the end, he had a message for the Pennsylvania delegation specifically. A bit of a warning.
A very direct one, yeah. He basically told them, if you vote for more tax breaks for billionaires while cutting things like Medicaid, nutrition, education,
People will notice.
he said they'll be thrown out of their jobs. A direct call for political accountability. Vote against the interests of working families. Face the consequences.
Okay, so definitely a speech laying out a strong critique, a stark view of the current economic landscape, and a really clear alternative vision.
Absolutely. It's a forceful argument about economic fairness and fundamentally who the country is supposed to work for. Leaves you with a lot to chew on.
It really does. Thanks for tuning in to Pulse of the People. If you found value, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Catch you in the next episode where your voice always matters.
So here's something to think about. What are some ways you think the concentration of wealth at the very top might impact the daily lives of average working people, beyond just the obvious financial pressures?